There we go. The hour is now. Very welcome to Ratio's seminar series about international economics, where we try to reach out to sisters organizations around the world. And today we are talking to Päivi Puonti. She is head of forecasting and has a PhD in economics. She's currently at Etla. It's a sister organization, so to say, to Ratio. She will present about everything that's happening in the Finnish economy, roughly, for some time. Please put the questions in the chat, and I have some questions too, so feel free. And I will take questions after. So, Päivi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Let me first share the slides in presentation mode. Okay, here. So thank you for having me, and thank you for your interest in the Finnish economy. Very happy to talk to you about the current issues that we're currently dealing with in Finland, the economic outlook, and then also let me take a little bit broader perspective on the Finnish economy. So let me start with the good news. We are currently forecasting that the downturn is finally behind us. Actually, we're not forecasting that. We actually see it from the very recent data. But we forecast that economic growth is going to slowly recover. Before going into the very short-term issues, let me walk you through the Finnish economy, GDP development since the beginning of 2000s. In the beginning of 2000, we had very strong economic growth, mostly driven by the Nokia cluster. If you look at the left-hand side picture, there coming to the 2008 and 9, when we had the global financial crisis, an external shock that hit the economy besides the euro area debt crisis that also hit us. There was other things happening in the Finnish economy. We, at the same time, we had a reorganization of the Nokia cluster, meaning that a big part of our economy was permanently lost. And if you look at the figures, you can see that only after 2014 did economic growth in Finland start to the GDP started to grow again. So it was these several shocks that hit the economy, but at the same time, the share the population aging in Finland really started to proceed. So the share of the elderly people compared to the working age population really started to grow. And so this is basically because of the demographic structure that we have in here in Finland. So it took several years after the financial crisis that the economy really started to grow again. And from 2014 onwards until the break of the COVID pandemic, we did have not as good growth as we did at the beginning of the 2000s, but we still had economic growth. Okay, so then came the pandemic, and you see the same kind of very sharp drop in GDP as in many other countries as well around the globe. And unfortunately, right after the recovery from the pandemic, the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine then started to reduce growth again. So this is where the dark line here ends. So the dark line is data, statistics that you see, and the lighter line is then our forecast for GDP. So basically, based on the GDP figures, we know that the Finnish GDP already started to grow last year, so from the beginning of 2024. But the growth was so subdued that basically we didn't reach the level of GDP of the previous year. So then turning to the right-hand side picture, here, this is a decomposition of growth, or where economic growth, GDP growth in Finland has come from, and where we expect it to come during the next 2 years. So here, the figures state that in 2024, at the moment, we know that the GDP stayed at the same level of the previous year, basically. And during the last 2 years, we have had a really strong slowdown in investment in our economy, and this has been pulling down GDP. At the same time, private consumption hasn't really recovered yet from the 2022 levels. We expect it to start growing slowly as we go forward. Also, we expect investment to pick up. So here, there is a slight difference between what's happening in the private and in the public sector. So although we have this drop in investments, it has been mainly private investment that has decreased very much during the last couple of years, while public investment has been growing, especially last year. And this is also going to, public investment is going to continue grow strongly in the next couple of years. I will come back to this later on. And also we have had support from public consumption. So it seems like, especially last year, when private demand was really low, public demand kind of compensated for that. Exactly how you would expect fiscal policy to do during slowing economic times. Net exports have been behaving somewhat differently during the pandemic and afterwards, but basically we don't expect any big boost from net exports coming during the next years to come. So basically, approximately 1 to 1.4% GDP growth is expected for Finland from this year onwards. Now I'm showing you a figure that is very similar to Germany. I saw the presentation that was given to you a while ago. So basically, when you would compare Finland's real GDP last year, and we compare it to the level that we had in 2019 before the pandemic and the war, and the subsequent rise in inflation and interest rates, basically the Finnish GDP is at the same level as it was in 2019. So this leaves us with several years of basically no growth. Comparing to the Eurozone, there have been economies that where, for example, services growth has been strong. So on average, Eurozone has been growing faster than Finland. And then comparing to the USA, the difference, the gap in GDP is even, and GDP growth is even more pronounced. So we have several years of lost growth here. So that is the overall economy, but obviously then there are different stories when you go into the details of different industries. And this picture is also similar to the one we see for Germany. So from certain perspectives, the Finnish and German economies are similar. They are facing similar challenges with respect to aging, for example, and the structure of the economy, industrial challenges. So basically, services, like in the rest of the euro area, services have been growing okay, but the major drop comes from the manufacturing and construction sectors. And here in Finland, it is especially the construction sector that has been suffering during the couple of years of the first inflation, obviously, the high prices, but then the high interest rates have hit these sectors more profoundly. And here, what is particular, why this has been so big issue for Finland is that manufacturing, construction sectors form a bigger part of the Finnish economy than in the euro area on average. So these are the industries that are investing, highly dependent on interest rates, and construction sector particularly. Particularly there, residential construction has been suffering a lot from the high interest rates and lower demand during these couple of years. So this is the big issue behind the figures that we see. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, construction investment has been suffering, but there it is the private, especially the residential construction, that has been suffering. Here on the left-hand side, we have construction investment since 2014. First, you can see the rise. So the boost in residential in construction investment during low interest rates, and then at the sharp decrease when the interest rates strongly increase in the euro area. We also see a slight upturn in the recent data. We expect this to continue. So on the right-hand side, you see the huge drop in investment. Has been mainly private, while public investment has been growing and continues to grow from this year onwards. There are several reasons for that. There are some very big investments in defense. Finland is currently replacing current fighter jets with new ones, new fighter jets coming from the United States. That is a big investment, approximately 10 billion euros. That means 3.5% of an annual Finnish GDP. So that is going to have an effect on public investment for several years. There are new corvettes being constructed currently in Finland. Then there are some infrastructure investment taking place. And finally, R&D investment. So public R&D investment is increasing during the forecast period. This is one of the measures the Finnish government has taken to improve long-term economic growth in Finland. Well, there's reason to believe that private investment is picking up as well, because interest rates are continuing to go down. The purchasing power of households is still improving. This has been important because most of the mortgages and also corporate loans are tied to very short-term interest rates in Finland. So this means that when the interest rates started to increase, this increase was very fast to transmitted in the prices, in the interest rates that households and companies faced. So that's why higher interest rates had an effect pretty fast, or faster in Finland than in the rest of the euro area. And residential investment has been growing very much, and it will continue to grow because of the urbanization. Basically, people are moving to the urban centers in Finland. So, for example, in the Helsinki area, a lot of housing is being constructed all the time, and this demographic shift to bigger centers is going to continue during the years to come. So, also construction will pick up, but it's just a matter of time. So Finland is part of the euro area, where we have common monetary policy, and I guess this is it was a particular time that interest rates rose so much. So this kind of showed the heterogeneity of the eurozone economies. The structures of the economies differ, and so did the inflation rates in different countries. So here I have plotted the inflation rate in Finland and in the eurozone. Obviously, when the European Central Bank sets its interest rates, it looks at the eurozone as a whole. while inflation in different countries can differ. And here we see that from the 2021, when inflation started to increase, inflation in Finland has been approximately 1 percentage point lower than in Eurozone on average. And also when inflation started to come down, it happened faster in Finland than in the rest of the Eurozone. So this means that Finland would have been useful, and it would have been justified to lower interest rate earlier from Finland's point of view than from the whole of Eurozone's point of view. A big difference here has been the services inflation, and it is exactly due to the services sector, the service industry, that has been even booming in some of the Central and Southern European countries. And because of that, then the wage increases and the services prices have been going up faster and for longer than in Finland. And from the Finnish economist's point of view, a looser monetary policy earlier would have been justified for us. And there, if you're wondering why the spread or the discrepancy between the Finnish and the Eurozone inflation rates kind of increased after 23, there's a technical issue there. So kind of a technical mistake in the computation of the Finnish inflation that was not corrected. So basically, the difference has been approximately 1 percentage point overall. So what is happening now is that business sentiment is improving, but consumer confidence is still at a record low level. So looking at the right-hand side, I will just point out the consumer confidence, how consumers feel about their own economic situation at the moment. It is at the lowest since in 2000s. So obviously, this has happened in other economies as well. So that the consumer confidence surveys have been really low, but this trend has an kind of affects the real economy as well. Because private consumption is approximately half of the GDP. So if consumers don't feel confident about consuming, they don't. And this is what we see in Finland. Private consumption is at the same level as it was in 2022. And you cannot explain this with decreasing purchasing power, because actually households' purchasing power decreased only in 2022, and it has been improving ever since. So basically, we see, putting these two together, the fact that purchasing power is improving, but people are not consuming, we see higher savings rate. So this is containing our GDP growth, but it also means that these savings could be used for consumption later on. So even though we forecast GDP growth for the coming years, we still have long-term challenges ahead. So broadening the perspective again and looking what has happened to our economy, real GDP development since 2007, before all of these crises that hit us, our economy around after the financial crisis, comparing to peers like Sweden and Germany, the Finnish GDP very much lags behind peers since 2007. So not only have we lost these couple of years of GDP, but we have had low GDP growth from 2008. And so this long-term economic growth is still a challenge for Finland. And the problem kind of shows up here as well in public finances. So looking at the public debt ratios in Finland and Sweden until the 2007, 2008, they were pretty much going hand in hand, but there has been a huge discrepancy since. While Sweden's public debt ratio has been low, increasing and decreasing, but staying around 40%. The Finnish public debt ratio has continued to increase. The government is currently has implemented fiscal consolidation, a couple of consolidation programs to contain public indebtedness. But for now, and given also the other pressures to increase public spending, for example, on defense, we don't see public debt ratios stabilizing in Finland for the coming years. And then just a couple of issues which we are talking about around this time, especially today. Well, tariffs, yes, they are a threat to international trade, and we have some estimates of how this would affect the Finnish economy. But obviously, a lot depends also on the retaliation measures that the European Union would make. But also in the longer term, unilateral tariffs from the United States could also result in trade flows being redirected. And as currently most of the trade of the EU countries takes place within the European Union in the single market, then this also could be beneficial to European countries as well, especially taking into account the planned increases in defense and infrastructure investment in Germany and other big European countries. So these could spur internal growth in Europe, especially this might benefit Finnish industry, also the defense industry. Okay, here I have come to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Päivi. It's very interesting. We always know too little about Finland, I think, so it's a good learning opportunity. I can start with questions, and if there are questions, just put them in the different chats and we can take them up. But what would you say is the largest structural challenge for Finland's economy, and what should you do to boost growth? Because looking at the per capita perspective, not much has happened in 20 years at all, almost.
That is a good point. Not much has happened in 20 years. We are currently very much talking about economic growth here in Finland. That is basically what the media and the government, everybody, and also us, we're talking about what to do about it. Well, the difficult thing is that what the government can do is going to affect in the long term. So basically, one is the demographics issue that we have that I mentioned. So basically, we need to make sure that there are enough skilled labor available in Finland, available for companies. So meaning not only that Finns are well educated, meaning that we see from international statistics that the education level in Finland kind of has stagnated compared to peers. We are not the level of high educated is not as high as in peer countries. So this is an important thing to make sure that Finns, many of the Finns obtain high education degree, but also that we are attractive to foreigners, foreign skilled labor. So these are two issues that can be done. Then also, well, as I mentioned, one practical thing that has been done is that the government has this multi-annual plan to increase R&D investment. So this is basically R&D subsidies, direct subsidies, but also this is supposed to leverage private R&D as well, because based on research, we know that productivity, one of the few things that the government can do is to invest in R&D to boost long-term productivity. And then one thing that we also discuss is whether taxation could be helpful. So we have very high taxes, tax ratios in Finland, whether in the short term lowering certain taxes for companies would be useful. Also, not only to incentivize people to take on jobs, but also for companies to to create more jobs. The government has also reformed social benefit system to incentivize people to take on jobs.
Yeah, talking about incentives and urbanization, I had a meeting with the Finnish embassy today, and they said that Finland has, compared to Sweden, let like the whole country live in a way we haven't, where we have like everyone should move to the big cities and be productive. Yeah. So is that changing now? Is not the whole country going to live, or how to say it? Or?
Well, we are not even discussing that, actually. So that is something that is well, one thing is whether it is from what perspective it would be beneficial for productivity and economic growth. But one thing is how that would affect public finances, because obviously having the big country inhabited, that is, and providing all public services everywhere, even in areas where you have a low population, it is very expensive. But that is a topic that is not currently discussed.
It's maybe coming up, and you can see what the question now we have here. Let's see. So Charlotta Stær, CEO at Ratio, is asking, Finland's wage increase norms was set at 2.6% for 2025, whereas the Swedish norms became 3.4%. Will this make Finland more competitive relative to Sweden because of lower labor costs?
Well, that's the thing. Because of the lower productivity that we have to keep the wage increases lower than in the competing countries, so to say, to keep the competitiveness even at par. So that's the thing. It all boils down to the lower productivity that we have.
And Trump's tariffs, it's maybe too early to say anything about those, but it seems Finland is very exposed to trade with the US, at least compared to Sweden. So how do you think this bodes for Finland?
Yes, well, at approximately, depending on the year, but approximately 10% of the trading goods goes to the United States. And then we're also exposed through the imports to the US of other European countries, especially Germany. So through the impact that this has on Germany, that will also affect us. There are many calculations there, but I guess there's this consensus that that these tariffs, well, also depending on the retaliatory actions that the European Commission will take, but this would would lower our GDP growth by 0.5 percentage points. So that would kind of cut off the forecast GDP growth for this year.
Yeah, it's tough. Anonymous question.
Well, yeah, assuming that all of these would, remain in place, what has been announced. But let's hope that the European Commission has some power here.
Sure hope so. A question here from No Name. Is there a discussion in Finland on long-term underinvestments in the productive capacity of the country in terms of infrastructure, railway, roads, and so forth?
Well, is there underinvestment? I think the investment ratios, the Finland invests quite a lot in infrastructure if you compare to many other countries, and especially in comparing to Europe. When countries do fiscal consolidation, there has been actually we see from statistics that countries tend to cut infrastructure investment in particular, but that hasn't happened in Finland. So the government is currently adding is increasing spending in infrastructure. So roads and railways. I mean, given that it is a big country with not that big population, it is costly, and there is always more to do. But spending on infrastructure has not been that big a problem. Maybe we could discuss more about spending on education. What is that? Because I have seen some statistics that when we compare spending on education in Sweden and Finland, Sweden is doing much better.
Oh, really? Higher education or lower? Or both?
I don't know the detail.
Together?
Yeah.
Why are people not spending? That was also quite interesting to see.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Well, given these very low rates that or how people respond to the survey of how confident they feel about their economy, and this is about their own economy, because when asked about the Finnish economy, they don't have a clue.
Yeah, of
So
course.
basically, you would assume people to know more about their own economy, and they are very pessimistic about it, even though, like I showed, we see the purchasing power improvement. Well, a lot has been discussed about what does this survey actually tell. So it could be that people, given the war and all the threats that we have around, that kind of fears are more reflected in the survey, in the confidence survey, than the actual economic situation of people. But it could also be that, well, I mean, the fact is that unemployment rate has risen quite a lot in Finland, so people do feel some kind of threat of unemployment. But all this kind of uncertainty then leads to people wanting to save more.
Yeah. So do you have high hopes in 5 years that there will be like a new birth of growth in Sweden?
And well, actually, the
Sweden, Finland.
1.5% growth. I mean, if we get that, I mean, that would be very good, because given the demographics and the previous years, if you look at the growth from 2014 onwards, I mean, that would be maximum we can do, unless we are able to boost productivity in some ways. But it's very difficult to find ways that are effective in the short term and not costly to the public sector.
Yeah, and what the politicians can take through parliament to have some hope to get re-elected, I guess, also.
Yeah.
Not easy. Well, another question. So thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. I think everyone should know more about Finland. So I hope we are helping with that. Thank you very much, Päivi.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone who has been listening.